Take about 4 months for the seed to grow into tomato plants like this one. Number 4. It's worth the wait, and they taste even better when you've grown them yourselves. That's how you grow your own fruit and vegetables.
Tikkabilla, Tikkabilla, fun for you and me. Tikkabilla, Tikkabilla, watch and you will see. Things to do, people to meet. We've got the whole world at our feet. At Tikkabilla, Tikkabilla, it's a wonderful place to be.
Hello!
Hello, welcome to Tikkabilla.
Now, we've got lots of exciting things to do in the Tikkabilla house today.
Yes, we have. We're going to be shopping, making, singing and playing.
Oh, playing. Do you like playing?
Hello, I do.
Hey, hello, Tamba.
Hello, Tamba.
Hello, Beverly.
Tamba, can I have your hand?
Why, Beverly?
Because I want to do a little rhyme using your hand.
Ooh, I like rhymes.
Are you ready?
Okay.
Round and round the garden, like a teddy bear. 1 step, 2 step, tickle you under there.
I like that one. Can we do it again?
Yes, of course we can. You can join in too if you know it. Are you ready? Round and round the garden, like a teddy bear. 1 step, 2 step, tickle you under there.
Oh, that's a great rhyme, isn't it? The teddy bears went round and around the garden, didn't they? And you've got some lovely teddy bears here, Tamba.
Yes. There's Roger and Stanley.
There's enough teddy bears here for a teddy bears picnic.
Let's get the picnic ready.
All right. What do we need?
We need a tablecloth.
A tablecloth. Okay, let me see what I've got here. Aha, look at this.
Oh, wonderful.
That'll do, won't it?
Okay, let me.
You can spread that out.
Tablecloth
It'll be
on.
lovely.
That's wonderful.
Anything
and
else?
plates.
Plate. Okay, let me see what I can find.
Oh, that's not a plate, is it, Tamba?
It's a teapot.
It's a teapot.
Oh, right.
It's a very nice teapot, and I think we will have it for our picnic. There
Great.
we go.
So you need some plates. Okay.
What do you think that is?
Not
What
sure.
is it?
Do you put
It's a sugar
in?
bowl, yes.
I found some plates.
Well done. Lovely colours,
yes,
thank you.
Blue, yellow, green, and red. Anything else, Tamba?
Cups.
Cups, okay.
1 green cup, 1 blue cup, 1 yellow cup, and a
Red cup.
red cup, and a milk jug.
Great.
That looks lovely. It's
Now-
right.
Well done, Tamba.
We need some cakes.
Cakes? You want cakes? Ooh, I'll have to see what I can bake up. I'll be back in just a second.
Oh, wow.
Wowie, look at
Oh, they're
those.
lovely.
Well, you know, I think we've got everything we need for our teddy bears picnic.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, you'd better go in disguise. For every bear that ever there was will gather there for certain, because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic.
Every teddy bear who's been good is sure of a treat today. There's lots of marvelous things to eat and wonderful games to play. Beneath the trees where nobody sees, they'll hide and seek as long as they please, 'cause that's the way the teddy bears have their picnic.
Picnic time for teddy bears. The little teddy bears are having a lovely time today. Watch them, catch them unawares, and see them picnic on their holiday. See them gaily gad about. They love to play and shout. They never have any cares.
At 6 o'clock, their mummies and daddies will take them home to bed because they're tired little teddy bears.
Oh, I think the teddy bears had a wonderful time on their picnic.
They did. But those cakes look delicious, don't they? I'm going to have one.
No, Paul! Don't eat it. It's only a pretend one.
Ah, there are some real cakes being made through one of the windows. Shall we go and look and see which one it is? Okay. How many windows? 1, 2, 3. Round, square or arched? Which one will it be? Ah, it's the arched window. Barry is making a cake, but he's not at home. He's in a big factory and he's going to make hundreds of cakes today. This is the big mixing bowl and whisk. The first ingredient to go in are the eggs. Then the flour. The giant whisk mixes the eggs and flour together. Then some water. And vegetable oil are added. Barry has to make sure it's all mixed up properly. When the mixture is smooth, it's ready for the next stage. It gets poured into this cake filling machine. That looks yummy. The mixture is going to be put into these little cake cases. The filling machine automatically fills up the cases with just the right amount of cake mixture. Now they're ready for baking. This is an oven. It's a very big oven. It can bake lots and lots of cakes at the same time. And when they're baked, they're golden brown and look delicious. What a great colour! This is pink icing, and it's going to be piped onto the cakes in a piping bag. Lovely dollops of pink and yellow icing go on top of all of the cakes. And one more thing, some chocolate beans to make the cakes even more colourful. All finished and ready to go to the shops.
Jack, which cakes do you want?
Fairy buns.
Wow, didn't those cakes look delicious?
Yes, they did.
Can you remember what colour they were? Can you remember, Paul?
Yes, they were... No. Oh, dear, I can't seem to remember at all. And there was something else that I was meant to remember, and I can't remember that either. Oh, no.
Dear, well, I think you better go off and have a little think about what it was you're supposed to be remembering.
Yes, I think so, too.
Can you remember, Tamba?
Oh, yes, they were yellow and pink.
Yes, well done, yellow and pink. Have you got a good memory?
What's memory?
Ah, well, memory is the thing that helps you to remember. It's the thing that Paul's just lost.
Oh, I see.
Would you like to play a memory game?
Oh, yes, please.
Would you? You can join in too if you like. Underneath this cloth on a tray, I've got all sorts of things for you to look at. And when I take the cloth back, I want you to take a good look at them, all right? Remember what's there. Then I'm going to cover the things up again, and then you can try and tell me what was there. All right?
Okay.
Are you ready? Yeah. Ready? There we go. Look at all these things. Now, we've got a lovely soft crocodile here. And we've got a...
Spoon.
Yes, we've got a spoon to eat your breakfast with. And a...
Key.
A key. It's the key to the Tikkabilla house. And what's this, Tamba?
Oh, a paintbrush.
It's a paintbrush, yes. And a very crunchy...
Apple.
Apple. Lovely. And last of all, a delicious...
Cake.
Cake, yes. Have you remembered all of those things? I'm going to cover the tray up. Have you remembered?
I think so.
Ready, steady, cover. Now, let's try and remember, shall we? Oh, there was a lovely... Hello, I'm Mr...
Crocodile.
Crocodile, yes. And there was a crunchy...
Apple.
Crunchy apple, lovely crocodile. What else was there?
Oh,
Can you remember?
can I have a look?
No, you can't have a look. Can you remember? Can you remember? It's something that opens the Tikkabilla house.
Oh, a key.
A key, that's right. Now, what else was there? Something else to eat.
Oh, a
A
cake.
delicious cake. Was that everything, do you think? I think that was
I
everything.
think
Oh, no,
so.
there was one more thing. Something that you eat your breakfast with or your soup.
Oh, spoon.
Your spoon, yes, I think that was it. Are you sure? Shall we have a look?
So.
Well, we remembered the crocodile. We remembered the cake. We remembered the...
Spoon.
Yes, and well done for remembering the...
Key.
The key and the crunchy...
Apple.
But guess what we forgot? The paintbrush. Oh.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Paul.
I've remembered what it is I was supposed to do.
Oh, fantastic.
I was going to go to the Tikkabilla shops, and we've got a whole row of shops here. We've got a fruit and vegetable store with cabbages and cauliflower, and we've got some fruit, some pineapples, some grapes, and some oranges and apples and bananas. Very tasty. Let's see what else we've got on this row of shops. Aha, this looks like an interesting and exciting shop. It's a sweet shop. And we can see all these lovely jars full of brightly coloured sweets. I've got another shop here. And this is a baker's shop. What a big cake with lots of pink icing. And gingerbread men and some bread and some buns. Tall shops, small shops, all around the town. Lifts going up and lifts going down. Doors swinging in and out, and people rushing all about. Now, Sammy's in a shop today. I think he's in a sweet shop. Let's see. This is Sammy. He lives with his mum and dad, his sister Anuja, and his granddad Sonny. Sammy is 4.5 years old. And Sammy loves to daydream. It was Friday, and Sammy was in his favourite sweet shop, trying to decide how to spend his pocket money. Although the shop was small, it was stuffed from floor to ceiling with jars of sweets of every colour and flavour imaginable. Sammy stood and looked for some time, wondering whether to go for the chocolate beans or the pear drops or maybe something else. It was difficult, but in the end he chose the chewy, fruity sweets. The shopkeeper took down a jar and began to measure out the sweets, but there were hardly any left. "I'm afraid you'll have to wait a minute while I go and fetch some more," said the shopkeeper. "That's okay," said Sammy. He was quite happy to stand and look at the sweets for a bit longer, although the smell was starting to make his mouth water. Almost as soon as the shopkeeper had turned his back, something very strange happened. There were squeaks and murmurs and whimpers coming from the jars all around Sammy, almost as if the sweets were alive and moving. up on the shelves, the noises grew louder and louder, and one of the jars began to wobble uncontrollably. Sammy was afraid it might fall and break when the lid suddenly flew off and marshmallows exploded across the shop. They began to bounce gleefully off the walls and ceiling, shouting, "Whee!" as they went. Sammy was wondering what to do when he heard a faint whistling sound from a shelf somewhere high above his head. It was quite dark in the shop and Sammy couldn't see what was making the noise until it whizzed past his ear and landed on the counter in front of him. It bounced a few times and skidded along the polished worktop before crashing to a halt by the licorice bootlaces. Sammy peered over the edge of the counter to see what it was, and what he saw was a little man made entirely from sweets sitting on a sherbet flying saucer. "Come on, help me," he called to Sammy, who was trying to avoid being hit. "We've got to get them back in the jar before they break something." And he grabbed a passing marshmallow, flew up to the shelf and dropped it into the top of the jar. But no sooner had he let go than the marshmallow jumped out again and was back, flying around with his friends. Sammy reached out and grabbed a handful as they whizzed past. He stuffed them into the jar and put the lid on quickly so they couldn't get out. The sweet man flew backwards and forwards across the shop so fast that all Sammy could see was a pink blur. He grabbed the mischievous marshmallows one by one and dropped them into the jar which Sammy was holding. But as fast as he worked, there still seemed to be hundreds more bouncing all over the shop. Then, in the midst of it all, the shopkeeper reappeared. The marshmallows froze in midair. "Right, here we are," he said, and went back to weighing out the fruity chews. Luckily, the shopkeeper had forgotten to put his glasses on and was too busy squinting at the scales to notice the marshmallows as they flew back into their jar. Sammy put the lid on and slid them onto the shelf. The sweet man, on his flying saucer, doffed his cap and ducked behind a jar of jelly beans, and the shopkeeper didn't see a thing. Sammy bought his sweets and said goodbye. Outside, while he walked up the street to meet his mother, he felt something moving in his pocket. He reached in and pulled out a marshmallow. It bounced up and down in the palm of his hand a few times, squeaking, then hopped off along the pavement back to the shop. "Come on, Sammy," called his mother. "Stop daydreaming." Sammy popped a fruity chew in his mouth and ran to meet her. He wasn't so sure that he had been daydreaming.
Sammy had great fun in the sweet shop, didn't he? And weren't those marshmallows bouncy? I'm going to make something using marshmallows, a marshmallow smile. And what I've got here are some apple, some marshmallows, and I'm going to take some pieces of apple, like that, and some marshmallows. And I wonder if you can guess what these are going to be. Can you guess? If I put the marshmallows down like that, what do they look like? Do they remind you of anything? They're teeth, aren't they? Aren't they fantastic? Right, I'm going to put that to one side and I'm going to make another one using these cheese cubes. Now, I wonder what they're going to look like. Let's see what they look like. I put my slice of apple down, put my cheese cubes on top of them, on top of the apple, like that. Another slice of apple on top of the cheese cubes. Look at those. And that's what happens when you don't brush your teeth. They go all yellow and crookedy. That's quite funny, isn't it? Now, I think I'm going to make a face. I've got a paper plate here, a nice peachy colour. And I've got some dried fruit over here. All sorts of lovely dried fruit. Apricots and raisins and prunes. And now what shall I start with? I've got something here. If I start there, what do you think those are? They're cherries. And there are the eyes. And if I use these prunes to go around the top of the face, oops, pop that one around there. Big juicy prunes, aren't they lovely? And that's the hair. It's all shiny and black like my hair. And do you know what the things are called above your eyes? They're called eyebrows. And if I use some of these lovely juicy raisins, I can pop them above the eyes like that for the eyebrows. Okay. Now next I need a nose. I think I'm going to use another juicy prune for a nose. Now, you know what I'm going to use to make the mouth, don't you? Yes. And to take some marshmallows and some apple. There we are. 2, 3, 4. And there we have our lovely fruity face. Ah, there might be some food in our story today. Tikkabilla, Tockabilla, Tikkabilla, Tock. What's the time on the Tikkabilla clock? Well, the big hand is pointing down to the number 6. So that means it's half past something. And the little hand has gone halfway past the number 6. So today, the Tikkabilla clock says it's 6:30. But what's this underneath the clock? It's a little mouse.
Today's story is called Shall We Do That Again? Mrs. Brown Mouse and Little Brown Mouse were walking in the woods. Mrs. Brown Mouse hid behind a tree and popped out with a loud boo. Little Brown Mouse jumped and laughed and laughed. Shall we do that again? She laughed and laughed. Not now, said Mrs. Brown Mouse, because right now it's time to turn round and go back. So they turned round to go back, and just when Mrs. Brown Mouse wasn't expecting it, Little Brown Mouse hid amongst the flowers and popped out with a loud boo. Mrs. Brown Mouse jumped, and Little Brown Mouse laughed and laughed. Shall we do that again? She laughed and laughed. Not now, said Mrs. Brown Mouse, putting Little Brown Mouse high on her shoulders, because right now it's time to get home for supper. So off they went home for supper, and while Mrs. Brown Mouse cooked, Little Brown Mouse watched, and just when Mrs. Brown Mouse wasn't expecting it, Little Brown Mouse crept across the room and hid behind the door, and jumped out with a loud bah! And Mrs. Brown Mouse waved her wooden spoon and went bah! Straight back, which sent Little Brown Mouse running under the table, laughing and laughing. Ooh, shall we do that again? She laughed and laughed. Not right now, said Mrs. Brown Mouse, because right now it's time to eat. So they sat down to eat, and Little Brown Mouse played with her food. And Mrs. Brown Mouse ate her food, and just as she was taking a rather large mouthful, Little Brown Mouse slid down behind her chair and popped out with a loud wah! Mrs. Brown Mouse jumped and ran after her, crying, "What's a little ghost doing in my kitchen?" And Little Brown Mouse laughed and laughed. "Oh, shall we do that again?" She laughed and laughed. "Not right now," said Mrs. Brown Mouse, "because right now it's time for your bath." So hand in hand, Mrs. Brown Mouse and Little Brown Mouse went upstairs. And Mrs. Brown Mouse prepared Little Brown Mouse's bath, and Little Brown Mouse got into it, and Mrs. Brown Mouse lathered up the sponge and got down to the washing, and just when she wasn't expecting it, Little Brown Mouse made a big splash and soaked her. Mrs. Brown Mouse shrieked and splashed her back, and Little Brown Mouse laughed and laughed. "Oh, shall we do that again?" She laughed and laughed. Not now," said Mrs. Brown Mouse, "because right now it's time for your bed." So Mrs. Brown Mouse dried Little Brown Mouse dry and powdered her and took hold of her toes and tickled her under 1 and tickled her under 2 and tickled her under 3 and tickled her under 4 and tickled her all the way up, wiggly, 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 from her tubby little toes to her chubby little chin. And little brown mouse laughed and laughed and laughed. Oh, can we do that again? She laughed and laughed. Please. Not now, said Mrs. Brown Mouse, because right now it's time for your bedtime story. So little brown mouse snuggled down under her duvet, and after all the excitement, Mrs. Brown Mouse read her a quiet bedtime story. And when it was finished, little brown mouse gave Mrs. Brown Mouse a big hug. And as Mrs. Brown Mouse was giving her a big hug back, up the stairs crept Mr. Brown Mouse. Boo! Cried little brown mouse. Boo! Laughed Mr. Brown Mouse. Ha! Shall we do that again? He laughed and laughed. Oh, no, not now, said little brown mouse, because now it's time for another hug.
Oh, what a lovely story.
Do you like hugs? Do you like hugs, Tamba?
Oh, yes. They make me feel very happy.
It's good when we feel happy, isn't it? How can people tell what we are feeling? How can they see what mood we're in? All we have to do is start revealing our feelings. This is how we do it. Let's begin.
Oh, if I am happy, this is what I do. I jump up and down. Ha-ha, you do it too. Jump when you're happy and jump along with me. We're happy for all to see. We're happy, yeah, we're happy. We're happy, you and me.
Oh, if I am grumpy, this is what I do. I stomp around the house, you do it too. Show that you're grumpy, stomp along with me. We're grumpy, you and me. We're grumpy, yeah, we're grumpy. We're grumpy, you and me.
If I am sad, this is what I do. I cry and cry and cry. You do it too. Show that you're sad. Cry along with me. We're sad for all to see. We're sad. We're so sad. We're sad. You and me.
Not anymore, we're not. Oh, if I'm excited, this is what I do. I run and run and run. You do it too. Show you're excited and run along with me. We're excited for all to see. We're excited. Yeah, excited. Excited, you and me.
So let out your feelings and all will be fine. Different ones at different times. Jump when you're happy, cry when you're sad. 'Cause feelings
Aren't half
feelings,
give you a laugh.
feelings aren't half bad. Oh, well, it's time for us to go now.
Maybe you could try the memory game or pretend to go shopping.
Or give someone a hug.
Aww.
But stay happy. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Tikkabilla, Tikkabilla, fun for you and me. Tikkabilla, Tikkabilla, watch and you will see. Tikkabilla, Tikkabilla, it's a wonderful place to be.
Ombly-boo, tombly-boo, un and e and oo. Iggle-piggle and pontypines, ha-hoo, ha-hoo, ha-hoo. Acca-wacca, macca-pacca, upsy-daisy-doo. Pinky Ponk and Ninky Nonk, Micka-Macka-Moo. For in the night garden, adventures wait for you.
New adventures every day at 6:20 on CBeebies.
Discover and do!
Do you know which animal in Mama Mirabelle's home movies wears